Like I said, this is your last opportunity before our quiz. So, number one, let me just write the translation up here for you. As soon as my iPad decides, there we go. Okay, so the quotient, thank you. The quotient of 9 and y, what does quotient mean?
Division.
So I'm going to write 9 over y. It's supposed to be a y. There we go. Is greater than, so that's actually pretty clear. Is greater than always means that, because the word is in there. That's crucial. Is greater than the product. A product means multiplication, right? Of 8. What symbol has to come after the 8? It's got to be a parentheses. Difference means subtraction. So I would write this. 9 over y is greater than 8, parentheses, x minus 3. So, take a minute here. If any of that stuff doesn't make sense, let me know. Maybe every now and then I mess up. I don't think I did, but maybe I did. Anything we need to talk about there?
Nope.
Okay. So, again, just a reminder, tomorrow on your DMR quiz, you'll see a question really similar in character to that one. Okay. Excuse me. All right, find the slope of the line. In order to do this, we need to be in slope-intercept form, which we are not. So the first thing I'm going to do in trying to get to slope-intercept form is to subtract 7x from both sides. This gives me this right here. And then to finally get to slope-intercept form, I need to divide everything through by -2. And when I do that, I get y equals -9/2 plus 7 over 2 times x. So what's my slope? 7 over 2. Again, please look at what you have. Look at what I have. Let me know if anything needs to be questioned or discussed. Mm-hmm. Oh, hey, Joe. What's up?
So is there a difference in putting the whole thing, so like 9 minus 7x over 2? Because if you were to divide everything on that side of the equation by 2, wouldn't you just put the whole?
Oh, so if you had this, like y equals 9 minus 7x over -2.
Yeah.
So that has the exact same value as what we have up there. But wouldn't you agree that it's a little bit harder to tell what the slope is? You know, you might look at that and be like, I don't know, like based on that, what would you say the slope is?
-7 over 2.
No, it's -7 over -2.
Or, yeah.
Which would be right, because a negative over a negative is a positive. So technically this is not slope-intercept form. It needs to be two separate terms over there to be slope-intercept form. But you can still tell what the slope is from that. So that's fine. I think that'd be fine in this case. Anybody else? All right, so then B, for number 2, says write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form of a line that passes through that point that is perpendicular to that other line. So we did one like this yesterday. What are the two things I need to have to write the equation or graph of a line? There we go. So my point on the line, of course, is -3, 11. And at this point, my slope is a bit of an unknown. I do know that my line is perpendicular to that other line. So what is the relationship between perpendicular lines?
It's the opposite reciprocal of slopes.
Slopes. Slopes are opposite reciprocal. So what I'm thinking is if I take this and I figure out what the slope is, then I could do that whole opposite reciprocal routine and I'd have my slope. So what is the slope of that 2x minus 3y equals 10?
2/3.
Then it's tempting to say 2. I think Kyrie's onto something with the 2/3. Isn't this kind of in the wrong form for us to be able to easily tell the slope?
Yeah.
We need to get to that slope-intercept form again. So I'll try that. 2x minus 3y equals 10. Subtracting over, I would get -3y equals 10 minus 2x. And then I would divide. And I think Kyrie is right. It would be y equals -10/3 plus 2/3 x. So if the slope for that line is 2/3, what's the slope for our line that's perpendicular to that one?
-3/2.
-3/2 is right. Okay, so -3/2 is my slope. I'm going to use point slope to get started. Y minus 11 equals -3/2 times x minus -3. That's really plus a positive. Distributive property would give me y minus 11 equals negative 3 halves x minus 9 halves. And then I add that 11 over. I got to get a common denominator and add. Let's just check your answer here. So it'd be y equals negative 3 halves x plus 13 halves for your final slope-intercept form. Okay, so I've skipped a couple of steps here and there. Did I skip too many? Do you have any questions? Looks like you didn't do the opposite reciprocal.
So I think I just didn't realize that I had to do it in the first place, and then at the end I put it in my.
You have to do that right away. Yep, because that's going to affect your y-intercept.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, Callie brings up a really great question I think worth mentioning. When you're finding the equation of a perpendicular line, you need to change that slope to the opposite reciprocal right away. You can't do that at the very end. Because if the slope is this, your y-intercept will be something. If your slope is that, your y-intercept will be something else. In other words, the slope is going to affect the y-intercept, so that change in your slope needs to happen right away. It cannot happen at the end. Okay. All right. Finally, number 3, solve the system. What are the 3 methods we learned how to solve a system? Substitution, elimination, graphing.
Wow.
Of those 3 methods, which do you guys think is the best? For this one, it's nicely set up for substitution. Why?
Because once in y equals mx plus b.
Did you notice that? Y is already by itself? That's really what makes substitution the easier of the methods. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to replace the y in the other equation with what y is. And it's 4x plus 7. See how the y is gone? Like this right here used to be the y. And now it's 4x plus 7. I can do that simply because they're equal. Okay, and then I add my like terms. 6x plus 7 equals 49. I subtract a 7. I get 6x equals 42. And division to get me home here, x is equal to 7. Yeah? I need to find the y to go with it. Which equation do you think would be the best one to plug back into? This one right here? The second one?
Oh wait, no.
No, the first one.
I like that one, right? Why is that one so much better? Y is by itself. Yeah, y is already equal to something. Yep.
I did the first one, but then I said the second one.
It's okay. So you guys get 35? So 7 comma 35 would be your intersection point on the graph. All right, so that's your DMR for the week. Do you have any follow-up questions here before we move on? Okay. So then, we got a few examples I want to work through. This is our last topic here having to do with systems. We'll be moving on to some applications here of linear equations coming up. I guess it'll be next week. So here we go. Excited to see how you guys do with this. Have you ever seen anything like that before?
Yes.
What is involved? So like I've just highlighted the one up there in orange. What's involved? Dashed line or
Straight line.
they're all straight.
A regular line.
Regular, aka solid, right? So dashed or solid. And then what was the other feature that went along with that?
Filling in.
Kind of shading. I didn't know if filling in meant shading, but yeah. So it's going to involve like the whole dotted or solid routine and shading. So this of course is a system of linear inequalities. So do you see how there's 2 of them? There's more than one. And so I thought we'd do this first one together. And if you can start to get a handle on this, then I think the other ones are going to go pretty well. So if you guys would, let's do this one together. I'm going to do the orange one first. The orange one is already nicely written in slope-intercept form. What is the y-intercept for the orange line? 0, 3. So that would be right about there. And what's my slope for the orange line? Yeah, so down 1.
Right 2.
I like right instead of over, but over and back could still work. So down 1, right 2. I really only need 2 points, but I'm going to fill in all of them just so I can get the full line across this whole graph. Does it make sense that that's a negative slope right there?
Seems so.
What's one way to check really quick that a line's slope is negative?
Plug in 0, 0.
No. Slope though. I saw this and I heard somebody say downhill. So as you move from left to right, if a car going on that would go downhill, that line should have a negative slope. But if the car would have to go uphill to go across from left to right, that would be a positive slope. So hope that makes sense. So I got my line up there. You guys all suggested 0, 3 for a y-intercept and negative 1/2 for a slope. So now let's make a decision. Should this line be solid or dotted? Why?
Because it's not equal to.
You just have the greater than. There is no or equal to there. So I'll just leave this as a dotted line. In fact, I think maybe I'll just leave it like that. You could make it little dashes if you want, but I'm going to just make mine literally a dotted line. Just got a bunch of dots. Okay. The final thing we got to do with that is we got to decide where to shade. Jaden, any suggestions on how I could decide where to shade? Okay. Anybody help him out? Noel, go ahead.
Plug in 0, 0, or just check it.
Yeah, 0, 0 is a test value, right? So do you guys see how 0, 0 is down in this region? So let's try it out. So let's test 0, 0 in the orange line. So that would be 0 is greater than negative 1/2 times 0 plus 3. So 0 is greater than 3. Is that true? No. So that means our test value failed. So that means the shading is on the other region, right?
Yeah.
So I would say my shading should be up here in this part. And this is what we did a lot of, 3-4 weeks ago. It's been a little while, but we've done a lot of that. How is this one different? Well, of course, it's a system, and so there's more than one. And so I'm going to make my other line a blue line. So on the blue line, what is my y-intercept? 0, 1, which would be right about there. And my slope is? 4 over 1. So we're going to go up 4. So up 4 over 1, up 4 over 1. So on and so forth.
I know this one.
So is my blue line going to be dotted like the orange one, or is it going to be solid? Why is it going to be solid?
Less than or equal to.
It's the or equal to, isn't it? Okay, so I'll try to get a good solid line here. Something like that. And then lastly, we need to decide shading for the blue line. Do you guys think testing out 0, 0 makes sense? Barely is in a region, but I agree. So let's test out 0, 0 in our blue line. So that would be 0 is less than or equal to 4 times 0 plus 1. So that's 0 is less than or equal to 1. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah, 0 is less than or equal to. It's not and, it's or. 0 is less than or equal to 1. It's less than. That's good. So I will shade on the side that had 0, 0. And this is where we get our answer from. So the answer for our system is always going to be on a graph. And it will be where the two shadings overlap each other. So do you guys see how there is a section, or there's a region where the shadings overlap?
Yes.
I'll label them for you. So let's say I've got region A, B, C, and D, which one is my answer region? B is my answer region because that's where the shadings overlap each other. So how do you do this on a quiz or a test if you don't have fancy schmancy little iPad markers like this? My suggestion would be when you first start shading, shade pretty light. And then when you realize where your overlap is, shade that in pretty dark. Like if I look at it and I'm like, I can't tell what's overlap and what's not, that's going to be a problem. So make it obvious. That looks really good. Please make it obvious. Now this is starting to get confusing because you're shading lower right really dark. It should be this, right? So I would look at that and I would get confused because I'd be like, well, I know it should be upper right, but he's shading lower right really dark. So just make it as obvious as you can. You are definitely allowed to use like maybe colored pencils or something if that would make it easier for you. Or as a last resort, couldn't you just label them like I didn't say something like this? The answer is B. I would be okay with that as well. Like if you have a little bit of a hard time shading or it gets kind of confusing and you feel like you're going to have to do a bunch of erasing, just label it and say, that's it. That's the region right there. And don't worry so much about the shading. Okay, that makes sense? I want you guys to try the next one with a partner or maybe on your own. If you guys would. What's that? Good for you. So take a look at number 2. Answer for number 2. What kind of line is the first one? It's a vertical line. So x is less than 1 would be a, let's see here, I'm going to go with red. So this would be a red vertical line at x equals 1. So it would look about like that. And, okay. Thank you. There we go. And would that vertical line need to be dotted or solid line? Have to be dotted. Agreed? So maybe we see this. Something like that. And then I need to shade. So for that vertical line at x equals 1, am I going to shade on the right side or the left side? All sides. So it's x is less than, right?
Yeah.
So numbers on the left side would be the ones that are less than, right?
Like right there.
So I will shade over here on this side of my vertical line.
Yeah.
So let's pause for a second. Do you have any questions about that? Vertical line, right? Because if you tried to ski it, you'd get X'd out. Shade on the left side. The other one? What do you guys think the y-intercept is? 0, -4. Right there. Victoria, what is the slope?
1/3.
Okay, so we're going to go up 1, right 3. Up 1, right 3. Up 1, right 3. Down over here.
Oh, I'm doing 1, 1 for both.
This will be over there. Now, should this line be dotted or solid? Stays dotted. Okay. Maybe you do some dashes on this one. I don't know.
Oh, 1, 1.
Kind of hard.
Oh, it is on this line. I was looking at this one. Not that.
Okay. And then am I going to shade above or below? Did you guys test out 0, 0 on this one? Okay. So 0, 0. And the green would be 0 is less than 1/3 times 0 minus 4. 0 is less than -4. Is that true? Is 0 less than -4?
Yeah. No, sorry.
0 is actually bigger than. So plugging in a 0, 0 created a false statement. So that means I need to shade in the region that doesn't have 0, 0. That's actually down here. Kind of on that lower part of the graph. Can you guys see the region that is overlapped? Okay. So if I label them like before, if I said A, B, C, and D, what's my answer region? D. Yep, down there at the very bottom. That's. Say again? There's a little bit of C.
Because like there's still some C in it, like, or am I just like?
So I've got my dotted line coming through here.
Yeah.
Right, so like this is D. That's the only overlap part. C is over here.
A little bit of C in there, or did I just?
When you well no, so it's how you define it. So I agree that there's this part. This is not a part of my region C. The y-axis is not a boundary. I like what you've got there. It's good. Okay, so guys, what I want to do here is turn you loose on the next two, and that'll be it. So if you guys would flip ahead to numbers 3 and 4. We'll check some answers before we go, but please work on those two. Ready, set, go.
People started coming outside.
Let's go find tails.
I already sit through physics